much for staying with us. Now, child sexual abuse remains one of the most disturbing crimes in Nigeria, and recent cases, including a shocking one here in Enugu, have intensified public demand for stronger protection of children. We have with us in the studio this morning Perpetua Ochime-Okpara. She's the head of legal unit, Ministry of Children, Gender Affairs and Social Development, Enugu, talking on child molesters and the law in Nigeria. You're very much welcome. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Now let's start with the law and the legal framework. The Senate recently moved to prescribe life imprisonment for defilement of minors. Now, from a legal perspective, how do you think that this amendment will change the way cases of child molestations are charged and prosecuted in Nigeria and in Enugu State?
All right, thank you for that question. Before we start, we have to know who a child is. The Child Rights Law of 2016 defines a child as someone below the age of 18. So anybody who is below the age of 18 is a child and is a minor. So for molestation, which is the second part, we're talking about harassment, we're talking about assault. Assault can come in different types. It can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be psychological. So all these things affects the child negatively if not well handled. Coming to the Senate's passing an amendment bill prescribing life imprisonment for child molesters, it is a welcome development, because if these cases are not well handled, it destroys the life of the child. And when the life of a child is destroyed, you can imagine what he or she will turn out to be as an adult. So it's a welcome development. That particular bill has amended the Criminal Code Act, which is a federal legislation. So from that amendment, it's going to come down to the states, because we have our criminal code law in Enugu State. You know, we can't start applying that of the Criminal Code Act, which is a federal legislation. Currently, the criminal code law is under review. So when it's reviewed, all these amendments will be, put in place, so that this penalty that is newly prescribed will be in our law. Whenever that offense is committed here in Enugu, we won't have to go back to the Criminal Code Act. We'll now go to the Criminal Code Law. And we equally have a law known as the Violation Against Persons Prohibition Law. It is a law that is wider than the Criminal Code, because in this particular law, in the Criminal Code only makes provision for molestation of a girl child. But under the VAP law, even if a boy is molested, that law covers for the boy child. You understand? You know, we usually hear about rape, which is, directed to the girl child. But some boys suffer rape, they suffer molestation, sexual molestation, physical molestation. So this VAP law is wider. It has a wider reach. So if a boy child is molested, that particular crime can come under the VAP law. And this sexual molestation is not only when there is penetration in the sexual organ. There are, like when you use a pen there are some certain acts you can commit on someone's body. It mustn't be on the vagina or the penis. Maybe if you use the pen to insect through the mouth, in a sexual manner or in a sensual manner, it's rape. You understand? So it makes it to be wider in order to protect our children, because we know that if these children are not well groomed, are not well taken care of from the cradle, a lot of things will go wrong. So that is the essence of making that provision, so that our children can be well protected. Thank you.
All right. Now, what are the penalties that currently exist under Nigerian law for offenders?
Okay, this amendment bill makes it possible that a child offender, if sentenced, will go in for life imprisonment. Before now, it was 14 years. But now they've seen that 14 years is not really solving that problem. They've now expanded it in order for it to act as a deterrent to other people who are intending to commit such offense. So when they hear that, okay, this punishment will attract life imprisonment, it will serve enough deterrence to them, so that whenever they want to commit the act, they will not do it, and they will have respect for their children. Thank you.
Now, how would you assess the current capacity of police investigators and state prosecutors, particularly in Enugu, when it comes to building cases that can sustain all these convictions under the life sentence standard?
Well, I'm not in the police, but the little I've worked with them, they are doing a great job. Yes, there is no institution that does not require consistent training, because new things are evolving every day. So all institutions requires training, the police, the prosecutors, but for the time being, they are doing a marvelous job. For the recent case that has been trending about some minors being defiled, you know, I wouldn't want to dwell in it because it's still under investigation. You understand? I was at the police station yesterday, and they were doing a great job, you understand, in order to make sure that the particular culprit of this crime, the perpetrator of the crime, is arraigned anytime from now. So they are doing a great job. The prosecutors from the Ministry of Justice, I must commend them. They are doing a great job.
All right. Despite all these laws, we are still seeing cases that still persist. But why is it that that we have weak enforcement when it comes to, you know, arraignment and all of that?
I don't agree with you. There's no weak enforcement, because all the stakeholders involved in this justice sector, the police, the prosecutors, they are all putting in so much effort in stemming this tide. We all will admit that, yes, the level of the crime now is very high, because when you see what influences all this crime, it could be drugs, it could be so many negative influence on the adults, you understand? So when these kind of things happen, it's a case of everybody putting hands together, you know, putting hands together in order to stem the tide of this crime. All this violent crime, even sexual crime and so many other things, is on the increase. I must admit that. You understand? But we must have to put our hands together. We are doing everything possible in order to curb this menace, because it is a big one.
Now, most families would prefer an out-of-court settlement, probably because of the stigma or whatever reason that they have. So are there any legal measures or guidelines that prevent all these kinds of private settlements, you know, that may circumvent the prosecution standard?
Whenever a crime is committed, it is committed against the states. The families of the victim are merely nominal complainants. Whenever the case goes to court, from the magistrate court, it is Commissioner of Police versus the perpetrator of the crime. And when it now goes to the High Court, it is state against the perpetrator of the crime. So the nominal complainants, who are the families, they don't have any rights for settlement. If it comes to our knowledge, they will be charged for aiding and abetting of that offense. A criminal offense is not settled out of the court. If it's a civil matter, it could be handled in other ways, maybe alternative dispute resolution. But once it's a criminal offense, it can never be settled out of court. Anybody that we get in that act will be charged for aiding and abetting that offense. Yes, we know that there are stigma associated with that crime, but settling it will not solve the problem, because a lot of those perpetrators are perverts. So keeping them out in circulation, they will look for another person to violate. So it is best you don't settle out of court, and you surrender whatever you are doing to the state, so that the state will do the needful in order to try the perpetrator and eventually convict him if he actually committed that offense. So there is no settlement in criminal case.
All right. Now, are there any functional child protection shelters or rehabilitation in Enugu currently that is, you know, doing everything in its power to help these victims?
Yes, we have shelters in Enugu State being managed by the Ministry of Children, Gender Affairs and Social Development. So whenever we come across a child that is being neglected, abandoned or maltreated, we keep them in that shelter for the time being until the issues are resolved around that child. Because we cannot keep a child in a violent home. We have to take that child away from that place where the child is, you know, is not feeling well, and keep that child in our shelter, which is being managed by the government. And I want to use this medium to equally commend my commissioner, Honorable Mrs. Ngozi Eni, who is a mother, who is very passionate about the job she's doing. She has been at the forefront of, eradicating gender-based violence. And she, everybody is happy with what she's doing. And also I want to commend the governor, who is a father and a visionary one for that matter. He has been giving us our support in everything that we are doing, everything that is required in order to prosecute cases and take care of those children. He has been doing it marvelously well, and I say thank you to him.
Now, earlier on, you made mention that these criminal cases cannot be settled out of court, and if the families are caught doing that, they will be charged for aiding and abetting.
Exactly.
Now, we have situations whereby the mother is aware that the father or an uncle or a brother, any relation or anybody is harassing or assaulting her children and doesn't say anything about it. So why are such people not put as probably co-defendants or maybe charged for aiding and abetting, actually, since they are aware and they did nothing about it?
We don't dwell on hearsay. If we come across any of such person, yes, they are co-defendants or co-accused person. Nobody is spared. Like the one I told you that is currently under investigation is a case of as in a home, as a domestic abuse. Do you get me? So nobody is being shielded here. If we get any information that is an uncle, is an aunt, is a father, we don't spare anybody, because we cannot leave such children in the hands of somebody that will ruin their future. If you come across a lot of these people, what do you call it? People who are trying to, who are suicidal, who are trying to commit suicide, you see that a lot of their cases stems from childhood, trauma. So when such traumas are not handled when they were little, it will affect them when they grow up as adults. So that is why we don't joke with our children. Whenever we get any news or information that they are being abused or violated, we try as much as possible to curb it, no matter who is involved, whether it's a father, whether it's a brother, whether it's an uncle or an aunt. So we don't spare anybody. So whenever you get any information that you have someone who is violating someone who is related to her or him, please feel free to come to our office. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but sorry, I know you want to ask a question, but just hold on. I'm asking specifically for the mothers.
Okay.
Like the situation that happened in Enugu, the one that has been trending, like you mentioned.
Okay.
The mother apparently is aware, probably because of fear or whatever reason, she did not come out to speak and defend her children or take it up with higher authorities. Is she, where does she stand? Is she also going to be charged for not speaking up? That's the scenario that I'm trying to get from you. So maybe not her particularly, but mothers in such situations, what do they get for not doing anything?
And to add to what she said, so if she is charged, say that the father is the culprit, then the woman is charged for aiding and abetting. What happens to the child? Because say we might know that the father is the breadwinner or the mother is the breadwinner. What happens to the child? Is there any long-term plan or support that will be given to this child, or is it just, you said before that that you take care of the child for a while and then that's it? Does it end there, or is it continuous?
So this is a two-step question.
For this instant case that is trending, the mother never covered it. I was with the mother yesterday at the police. You understand? So if you get any information that the mother maybe kept quiet or anything, that's not true. A lot of news are flying on social media now. I was with the mother yesterday and she opened up to me because I interviewed her. I asked her, when did you notice this started? And she told me. You understand? For this instant case, the mother never covered up. But in any case, a mother covers up. It will not be good to lock up a father and a mother at the same time. You understand? Unless maybe their involvement is so intense. That is why I told you about having a shelter. In that shelter, we have other children that are there equally. We take care of them. It could be short term, it could be long term. Depending on when we have maybe a capable relative who can come and claim the child. Do you understand? Because we live in an African society. A relative can say, okay, I want to take care of that child. You can't deprive the relative of taking care of that child. Once we are sure that that child will be safe in the hands of that relative, we can release that child and keep on monitoring the progress of that child. Do you understand? But if that person does not, if those children does not have capable relatives that will take care of them, they can stay in our shelter. Our government, we have a lot of cases where our governor has sponsored some children from primary, secondary, and up to university level. These children are children of the states. We can't just abandon them. So whenever there is no capable hand to take care of them, the government is very, very available to take care of the children.
All right. Now, some of the families of this of the victims, some of them, they are not aware of their right. They are not even aware of the legal consequences if they speak up against their molesters. Now, in your opinion, what kind of legal reforms or awareness campaigns do you think that Enugu State, and don't just say Enugu State, Nigeria needs?
Okay. Currently, we embark on sensitization, enlightenment, to create awareness about this crime. Because a lot of people, yes, I can't deny the fact that a lot of people shield their relatives whenever such things happen. But whenever we get hold of such people, they pay for their crimes. We create awareness for people to be aware of their rights. Because a lot of people are not aware of their rights. When things of this nature happen, they hide it, they cover it, maybe for fear of stigmatization, for any other, for cultural reasons. Because we live in a culture whereby we tend to hide our problems. We pretend a lot. But whenever we create that awareness, you see people coming out to voice out their problem. Recently, we embarked on sensitization of domestication of the gender policy in all the 17 local governments of the states. So while we were going to all the local governments, you see people coming out to come and tell you their problem, because you see that it's a big burden on them. They can't keep covering it. They open up. These are things that they couldn't even open up to say before now. But they open up to tell us our problem. And those who couldn't attend to when we visited the local government, they came to our offices and we have been attending to them. So the government has been very supportive in that area in order to create that awareness and give support to the vulnerable and to the vulnerable in the society.
Now, apart from this support and the empowerment and the likes, what about rehabilitation? Because most of these victims start having some mental health issues, psychological issues. So what are the rehabilitation processes like in the States?
Okay, in our office, we have a unit called the Enugu SAC. That SAC stands for Sexual Assault Referral Center. So we have nurses, we have psychologists, we have a lot of professionals who are very good in taking care of patients like that. So whenever we have someone who has suffered trauma, we refer them to that section of the office, and those people now take charge, because we know that it can ruin one's life if such things is not well managed or handled. So when those clinical psychologists counsels them on those kind of offenses, those acts that have been committed to them, because it's a violent act which can make them lose hope in life. So when they are counseled, they start returning back, and we equally have doctors that offers them the necessary Medicare so that they can return back to themselves. And we've had a lot of success stories since we started.
All right. Now, you've been talking about stigmatization and all the cultural norms. Now, how can we actually break all these cultural taboos that prevent victims and families from speaking up?
It's continuous sensitization and equally punishing whomever who is trying to stigmatize anybody who is suffering. Because we have that culture of blaming people. When someone is defiled or raped, you start blaming the victim. That, oh, what dress were you wearing when this incident, when this rape occurred to you? Where were you? These are not what will save the situation. What will save the situation is arresting the perpetrator and trying him for that offense. If he's found guilty, he will be convicted. So that culture of stigmatization is gradually wearing off, unlike before, because they know that the government is not in support of what is happening. it was when our society was in the primitive stage. That was when people can easily stigmatize against people. When someone suffers an act of sexual assault, you see people, you know, avoiding that person. And because of that stigmatization, you see that that person cannot open up to, you know, talk about his or her problem. But all those things are gradually wearing off because the government is against any form of gender-based violence.
Now, earlier on, you mentioned that this issue of sexual violence is on the increase these days. Why do you think it is so? Why does it seem that like it's occurring almost every day, and particularly on minors? What is going on?
Okay, from my own investigation, it stems from substance or drug abuse. You know, when people engage in a lot of drug abuse, they lose their senses. They cannot control their urge anymore. And you know, these children, these minors, they are very, you know, vulnerable. They cannot protect themselves. That is why, in as much as we are calling on sensitization and empowerment, we are also calling on parents to look after their children. Know where your children are at any point in time. You understand? So you don't have to be careful and say, okay, maybe you are engaged in your business and you don't know what is happening to your children at home. Even if they're at home, you must leave as an adult with them to take care of them. Because if they are left uncared for, that is when such an adult or perpetrator can have access to them. So that is it. A lot of youths are into drugs these days. And we know the menace of drugs. We know how a lot of people can lose their senses when they, you know, take on drugs and they commit such acts in such states.
So are you attributing this issue strictly to drugs? Is it just drugs that pushes them to, you know, make this violent? Don't you think that some of them do it for some other reasons apart from drugs? Because
we see some religious leaders, you know, involved in this kind of act. We see fathers that go to offices. We see elites, men in, you know, different cadres committing this impunity.
For now, one of the factors is drug. I may not know other reasons, but I'm just talking based on my research that I've carried out. You understand? Yes, it could be drugs. It could be, some people can be sane without, you know, being under the influence of drugs, and they commit such heinous acts. But whatever may be the cause, that is not we're not after that. Once the act is committed, we go after the perpetrator and, you know, try that perpetrator. And if found guilty, the perpetrator will go in for life imprisonment.
All right. Now, how can Nigeria actually move from a reactive justice system? Because the justice system acts when the issue has been done. Now, how can we move from a reactive justice system to a preventive justice system?
Well, we are operating that preventive justice system, because when you keep sensitizing and, you know, creating awareness, you are trying to prevent the crime. You know, you tell people of their rights, you tell people how to protect themselves. All those things are preventive measures in order to stem the tide of this crime. It's not about, you know, medicine after death, or you know, we all know that prevention is better than cure. So we know that prevention is better than allowing the crime to be committed. That's why we educate them, we enlighten them, and we make them speak up. Because when we have all these survivors coming to tell their stories, it will, you know, educate those who such things have not happened to, so that whenever they see any sign of such thing happening, they will open up their mouths and speak out and come to our office and complain. So we are equally applying the preventive measure because it is much more better and safer.
But you know, this sensitization is somewhat in the modern areas. How about those that are in rural areas that don't even have access to this awareness or information?
Okay, I earlier told you about how we visited the 17 local governments for the domestication of the gender policy. So we could have stayed in our air-conditioned office to prepare that policy, but we said no. The governor said it is better we go to the grassroots to meet those women, to speak their local dialect, because we have people who could translate the language to the language they could understand. So we met them in their home, in their grassroots. So these are ways of us meeting them in their rural areas so that they could see us and we'll see them. Before then, the normal way was to stay in the office and prepare such policy. But the governor said we have to change that pattern. And that was what we used. And we have covered the whole 17 local governments in the state.
And you made mention of these children being put in shelters if there is no one to, currently take care of them until you find a trusted relatives. So I'd like to ask you, what is the state of these shelters? Because we hear that there are homes for children and shelters, but sometimes the environment might not really be that conducive or good for them. So what is the state of these shelters, and how is it like for the children who stay there?
The shelter is very conducive, very serene, very accommodating. Whenever I go there, I don't even want to leave that place. So I'm not just trying to paint a beautiful picture. It's very, very accessible. Whenever you're ready, you can come with your team and visit the place. You see for yourself. This government even had to refurbish the place and provide all the necessary equipment that these children need to thrive as children. So you need to come and visit the place so that you get a first-hand information of how beautiful that place is.
All right. Now, beyond all of this, we know that implementation in Nigeria, when the government brings a law, implementation sometimes takes a very long time. Now, what is your assessment of the implementation processes so far, and your assessment of government funding and political will towards child protection units in the country, not just in Enugu State?
Okay, I will start by talking about Enugu State. Enugu State the government of Enugu State has been doing very well in terms of child protection. And when you come to the ministry, you see that we are working tooth and nail in order to implement all the policies and equally implement all the laws that will aid the improvement of the lives of these children. The government is doing well in the state level, and in the federal level, the federal government is equally doing well. And we are still, looking up to improving in areas that we're not doing well. But so far, we are doing well. We are open to anybody who has anything to tell us about how we can expand or do well. So, but the government, the state government is doing well, and equally the federal government is doing well.
All right. Uche, I don't know if you have any other thing to say.
I think she has answered the questions that I have for her.
All right.
Yes.
Now, finally, before we go, what do you say to the victims, to the parents, to the caretakers, to the government, the NGOs that is listening currently concerning this particular issue?
Okay. I will advise, as a mother and equally as a prosecutor, please don't cover up for any crime. The more you cover up, the more pervasive it becomes. And you enable the perpetrator, because that perpetrator will keep committing more crimes. So whenever there is any form of sexual assault that is ongoing in your home, in your locality, please speak up. Come and report. Come to our office. Our office is situated at Ministry of Children, Gender Affairs and Social Development. It's at Wayek bus stop. Please feel free to come, and I will give you my line to call whenever you have any reason to call. Can I call the line?
We'll get the information from you.
It's okay.
After.
All right. Okay. Please feel free. This is not an era where you can cover up any form of crime. Always speak out. And when you speak out, you see that help will come to you. I
think you should probably call it on air so that those listening can, pick up the line and seek for help.
It's okay. All right. I call.
Yes.
080 611 61458.
All right. A very big thank you to you, Perpetua Chinwe Okbara. Thank you for joining us in the studio on that topic, child molesters and the law in Nigeria. Now, over to you, Uche.
Yes, the morning show will be back in a moment. We'll go on a quick break. Make sure to stay with us.